Are you here? Is that you? You. Oh, we can hear you.
You don't.
What do you want to say?
You don't belong here.
But you do. You do belong here.
You don't. None of you.
The director Andrea Montgomery has spent a lifetime travelling, living and experiencing different cultures and countries. As a director with over 40 professional shows to her name, a founder of Terra Nova Productions, Northern Ireland's only intercultural theatre company, Andrea has brought international work to the UK as well as UK work abroad. Her latest show tells the stories of second-generation immigrants living in Northern Ireland. In the form of tapas theatre, it's called Arrivals 2. We should be celebrating. Arrivals 2 was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Obviously this is number 2, so where did the idea for Arrivals come from originally?
Oh, good question. Thank you. The original impulse behind the Arrivals sort of trilogy, as we're now thinking it might be, so let's call it the Arrivals project, was a feeling that the plays weren't coming through. I have a theatre company that does intercultural work. It's relatively new, but there aren't the plays out there. And I wasn't seeing them from here, from Northern Ireland, no intercultural plays. And so the original motivation was to find a way to make writers feel comfortable so that they could be secure to write intercultural characters. I'm a writer myself. I know that you write what you know, and writers want to be authentic, so they need that support. So the idea, it was originally from the writer's perspective, and it very much was what I would call like colorblind, in that sense that it was, I didn't care where the writers came from. If they were living in Northern Ireland, I wanted to work with them. And so they just had to be good writers and be interested in finding out more about how to work interculturally. So that's where the original impulse came from.
Okay, and how does Arrivals 2 differ from number 1?
Number 1. Number 1, the project was originally, the original idea was called 8 to Create, and I thought I'd have enough money to work with 8 writers and 8 actors. So Arrivals 1 was, we had kind of put in for 8 to Create, didn't get the money we wanted, but really still wanted to do something, and one of our other projects dropped out, and so we had to make a decision really quickly, and we went with it. And so I think Arrivals 1, it was more naturalistic. It was, the process was perhaps less packed full, so that, for instance, we didn't have a steering group at that point. We didn't have the writers' workshop that we included in the process this time. We did have the general workshops in the community and then the masterclass, but then it was pretty much go write in a hurry, bang, we need this in 6 weeks and we're going into rehearsal. So this time we had more time, and I think as a result, we've got plays that are kind of more wildly creative. They're less naturalistic, and probably that's because people had more time. You tend to be quite realistic when you've only got a short amount. It takes, to be crazier, it takes a bit more time,
There's always a fear or difficulty that you can be very cliche with the use of stereotypes.
Yeah.
What process have you taken to avoid this?
I think the stereotypes can come in 2 ways. The first stereotype is the way that characters and stories are told, and you've got to make sure that you're not getting stuck in those. And the second area can be the sort of stereotype of what I would call worthy theatre, that you're going to come to the theatre and someone's going to wag a finger at you via a play, racism is bad. Things that we already know. So what we did was we worked very, very hard through our steering group and through our community workshops to connect with the people who we hoped would inspire the stories. And then when we went through the masterclass, there was an awful lot of work done to really get people to share who they were very specifically themselves. And then the other thing is we spent quite a lot of time brainstorming what it was we actually wanted to do theatrically, and we came up with this mission statement. I remember something along the lines of to make great, and we had adjectives, fascinating, challenging, whatever, theatre that just happened to have an intercultural foundation. I just want to make really good professional theatre that is profoundly intercultural.
Wonderful. The work you're doing is very innovative, challenging prejudices. How do you think intercultural theatre can help contribute to good relations?
That's a good question, because without a doubt, there can be, we have had people say you're preaching to the converted. The ones who are going to come to see this theatre are not the ones who are, writing go home on someone's house at, 3 o'clock in the morning. But I would counter that, because I think that there are a couple of examples. One is, I think that there are lots of people who in Northern Ireland who are theatre lovers and intellectuals, but if they're going to the Lyric and they're going to the Mac and they're going to the Opera House and they're going to the local, they're going to the Marketplace Armagh or the Island Arts Centre Lisburn, they're not going to be seeing Black, Chinese and Indian faces with Northern Irish accents on those stages. So they are not as converted as everybody thinks they are, because people do have a powerful experience where they suddenly realize that there's someone on stage speaking with a Northern Irish accent, whose parents are from Jamaica. It's a really powerful experience where you suddenly feel that. So, and it's a powerful experience for the Northern Irish residents who are themselves, from those backgrounds. They would just never ever see themselves on stage, and imagine what that would be like, to suddenly have that change. So I think we do contribute to the dialogue that way, and people have a surprising experience. The other thing is, I have had a very frank, a wonderful writer who I work with called Deirdre Cartmel, and she has said, Andrea, I did not know the blinders that were inside my own head until I went through the process and felt it from the inside.
As a writer, you kind of come back to the same things over and over again in your writing, and you really write very much from your own life and own personal experiences, whereas this kind of forces you to think outside that a bit. So while you're bringing your own life and your own experiences to it, there's also this other thing coming at you that you don't know about yourself until you meet the other people who are living this life. And I think it's so important. I think that bit really helped me to feel I could write authentically, having people share their very personal stories with us.
I saw the first arrivals last year in Armagh. I'm from Armagh, and I happened to be home that weekend, and I went to see it. I know one of the other writers, Jim Meredith, so I went along to see it, partly to see Jim, but I was really taken with the show, and I thought it sort of presented a new picture of Northern Ireland in a way that I hadn't really seen in theatre before. A kind of world that I recognised but hadn't seen depicted before, so I kind of thought it was really fresh and engaging, and so I sort of lodged that in the back of my mind, and then when I heard that Arrivals 2 was happening, I was determined to be a part of it.
I think you always think you're sort of liberal, and you know the rights and wrongs of things, and you see the headlines and you see the racist attacks and bricks being through windows and stuff like that, but you don't very often think about the little daily things, the little daily humiliations, and the little daily sort of addition that people get, that the people who are handed out don't even probably think it's racist, or don't even think it's what they're saying is anything to do with where people are from and what the colour is and stuff like that. And I think we can all be guilty of that, and I think that's something that might maybe think twice about some of my own preconceptions of it.
The shop broke into laughter. There was shouting, chaos. Turns out being queer is a lot worse than being black. I sauntered out of the shop like kings. I went around to St. Mickey's a few weeks after that, and even beaten up. Wouldn't admit to me that it was Chopper. Chopper never uttered a word to me again.
I'd always heard a lot of bad things about Northern Ireland. Like twice when I was about 7, 8, we'd try to drive here, and on the way here, a bomb had gone off, and we'd turn around. So, and then my mum would say, if people ask you where you're from or what religion you are, make sure you say this, you say that. And so I felt very. And then when we came for the masterclass, a couple of the writers had said, that some people might notice when you walk down the street because you're not white. But actually I think it's so friendly here, and I haven't noticed any sort of racism or at all. I love it here. Like I could live here.
Because I feel like I'm having a conversation with her.
I'm sorry, this is too much for me to take. The orange order into my head.
I wanted to write a nice play about Belfast. I thought, I'm from Belfast, I love the city. I want to kind of find out how people who are here, who are second generation, who are born here, love the city as much as I do, and I thought I was going to write a nice positive story And so I interviewed a number of people that I knew who were friends of mine or family that were second generation. And then actually I heard really horrific stories of kind of racism and feeling different in Belfast, and I suppose I was quite disgusted by it, and I was ashamed by it, and I was really upset by it, and I thought, that's the piece I need to write now. I have to be honest about it. And I didn't want to write a play about racism, and I hope I haven't, but I think it's there.
Quite a few of those characters are second generation immigrants, and I myself am a second generation immigrant. My parents are from the Caribbean. I'm born in London, so there are elements of, you know, the stakes are quite high because there's a sense of belonging. Where do you belong? Even though I'm born here, this part of you still, you know, kind of belongs to where your parents are from. So I think a sense of identity, who are you, and making home where you feel is home.
I think the one role of the three that I play that is most similar to me would be Lorraine, who's a girl, she's 26, Northern Irish, and it's in a play called The Ties That Bind by Maggie Cronin, and I think I would identify with her because she just, it's a strange thing when I have found in my experience of being Northern Irish, because of where you come from, you sometimes have these ideas or notions that they're just embedded in your conscious, and you don't even necessarily realise until something or somebody or whatever brings them to the fore of your mind. And she's a character who has a lot of misconceptions and preconceptions about certain groups of people, and I think that you can identify with that if you're from here.
They're making steps to make it better. You know, there are a lot more mix of people in Northern Ireland, so that is a beautiful thing, and creating more theatre and more arts things in Northern Ireland that show the different cultures that are here.
Arrivals 2, it is brilliant, amazing. Yeah, tell a very strong intercultural theme, and that's what makes it very, very, very good.
I really enjoyed Arrivals 2. I enjoyed the kind of the very different takes on what it was all about. My favourite piece was the first piece with kind of the ghost, the presence in the house.
I thought it was a very interesting set of plays. I think each play was different, but each brought an interesting aspect to the kind of migration debate and the migration idea. So I think that's very important.
And some of the individual performances were mesmerising.
They're very good at what they do, and they get people more interested. They draw the people into them, and they tell a good story, which is just good, you know what I mean? It's good to see that in Belfast. I just wish that we have people from Belfast themselves can play a part of that.
An engaging set of 5 plays. Arrivals 2 will be touring Northern Ireland until the 28th of March.